It's the quarterfinals of the Europa League. It's a big deal, but us here on Hammers Chat, we like to be honest about what we do and don't know. So when it comes up against the likes of Olympique Lyonnais, or Lyon to me and you, we need to get someone else in to really get to the nitty-gritty of what they're about. Our guest today will be able to do that, although does not have a French accent, so I should probably ask you first, if people didn't see the video you did with Gonzo about a year ago at this point, to introduce yourself and how you know stuff about French football.
Yes, it's me, a Euro expert, Alex, so please call me Alex, and a French football nerd, I guess, or European football nerd, the guy who, well, while many people watching probably has a lot of time to go out of the weekend, spend some time, go outside. There's me who will sit inside and watch games like Mallorca v Cadiz or Cagliari for Genoa and Lyon games, which will be, thankfully, very useful today. And also, I think, to West Ham fans who might sit here and think, who is this guy? Is he about to try and tell me about this Farmers League and why I should care? I will disagree with you on that, but you will agree with you'll hopefully be pleased by the overall conclusion, which I think will be fairly positive to West Ham as we get into the nitty-gritty of this.
Okay. We'll be seeing it how much you know due to your pronunciation of French players as well as we go through, because as we all know, Gonzo, for example, he's a big fan of Morgan Sanson. He won't say Morgan. Do you know what I mean? You got to get the pronunciation.
Okay.
So we've seen how that goes. But talk to me about Lyon. How's their season going so far?
It has been. Can I swear on here?
Give it like another minute so YouTube doesn't go wild.
Okay, it has been a show. It's been mental. Europa League, I have it in my notes. It's astonishing they're in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, considering where they are in the league. They're only about 6 points off fourth in the league and ninth, which masks it, in my opinion. I think they've been far worse than that. I don't know how much the people watching understand the nitty-gritty stats, so I'll try and keep it simple, but there's one I really couldn't ignore. People will hear of expected goals, which the shorthand explanation is the measure of the quality of chance the team creates. Well, non-penalty XG against, so from open play, excluding penalties, Lyon are seventh bottom for against for non-penalty XG against, which means they are basically close to relegation levels of teams playing against them and cutting them apart. And we're going to talk more about the tactics, but it's been divisive. And as well, I've barely talked about the pre-season where they literally had players threatening to resign and one resigning over differences over tactics and the club. You may be aware of the Brazilian centre-back Marcelo, who is no longer at the club because he was forced out. He was basically asked to terminate his contract after he was caught laughing after a 3-0 defeat on the second day of the season. So it has been hectic, angry. There's rumours of the manager wanting to leave and being forced out. Like I said, miracle there in the quarterfinals of the Europa League.
Yeah, I mean, again, from the outside, it does look a bit insane. I mean, a lot of French football does at the moment. You have all the problems with rights, TV rights and TV deals and all that sort of stuff. You've got fan protests happening all over the shop seemingly throughout the season. It seems a bit mad. But even then, when looking in on the outside, Lyon is this team who I'm seeing Juninho free kicks. I'm seeing madnesses from days past. And a team who 2 years ago were in, what was it, semi-finals of Champions League? Knocking out Man City, Juventus on the way. This isn't a bad side. And yet, league-wise, at least, it seems to have, again, from the outside, seems to have gone pretty poorly. I mean, maybe picked up a little bit since January, but even then, not killing the game. Like, what do you put down? Is it Peter? This is a name I will butcher. Peter Bosz, sounding more and more like the mattress man off The Apprentice when I say that. But is it more? Was it him coming in because he came in this season, didn't he? Is it tactical changes that he's bringing in that's causing the unrest, or is it something else entirely?
Nail on the head. Tete Bosz has been, weirdly, he's been at fault for the most horrific suicidal defensive displays you will see this season, as well as being responsible for liquid football up front, like almost Barcelona levels. It's hot and cold, but to really explain it, so Tete Bosz is a manager who came through Ajax and went to Dortmund, got sacked midway through the season, and has been at Leverkusen for the past 3 years. And he gets these big jobs because in the attack, he's able to coach like these really intricate patterns where it's like, if you could imagine dream football, where it's short passes, like off the ball runs, breaking into the box, like one touch flicks. You have probably seen Lyon goals on Twitter from them. Like he's managed to create that, but it's at the cost where out of possession, he asks his players to push as high as Liverpool would really and press the opposition. And what that leads to is just Lyon getting like my pet peeve when watching football teams is a team that is constantly running back towards their own goal because they're being outpaced by the opposition team. And that's what Lyon have every single time. So really it's behind the tactics there. I mean, I mentioned that 3-0 loss that sparked, I think, leaks as well of the club saying we want to sell half this team. Like you can watch the highlights of that. It was Lyon v Angers. And what happened every time was Lyon pushing ridiculously high, simple balls just going over the top. Them getting completely undone, and they've not really adapted to it. And finally, that bit of context to their season as well. It's not like they've started horribly and have bounced back or anything. Their form over the last 5 games is win, loss, draw, and it basically repeats that over the rest of the season. So inconsistent, Lyon.
Yeah, and even you mentioned Angers there. I mean, they faced them recently, and even then they still conceded 2 to them. They ended up winning 3-2, but you're still looking at a team who are leaky all over the shop. At least again from the outside. I mean, even if people watched the preview and Gonzo did yesterday, or probably 2 days ago at this point, because maths. No, it will be yesterday. I know what's going on in life. Don't ask questions. The point is even then, Gio, who admittedly doesn't like French football, doesn't watch French football, even he was going, oh, their defense looks all over the shop from the outside point of view. It's one of the most potent things. But like you said, when you look at it, and I try to look at it statistically a lot of the time as well, their attacking stats are relatively good. Their XG is pretty high, higher than even their goal output, which shows they're probably a bit unlucky in that front. But just defensively, they drop off. Their tackles in the attacking third and the midfield third are pretty high. Defensively, all the way near the bottom. It's just incredible how they seem to have a great front line and then defensively just a bit not there.
For the Premier League fans, it's like if you hired Marcelo Bielsa and Lampard at Chelsea and Everton to coach one team whose defenders like include Jerome Boateng, who's quite past it, Leo Dubois, who's okay, Emerson, Chelsea's, in my opinion, he should have stayed there, but third backup left back, let's face it, and Lukeba, who's like a player coming through. Yeah, it explains it. It's very ropey. You're asking way too much from a defense that really aren't up to it.
So we've spoken about that defensive side, the weaknesses they've got. What about their strengths? What players are in form? And I suspect we're just going to name attackers here, but who are those key men we need to be worried about on Thursday night?
Yeah, Lyon are annoyingly because you want to see a team do as good as they can. Even as inconsistent they are dripping with talent and plenty of names that we'd heard of. I mean, we're seeing Bruno Guimaraes, who's just moved from Lyon to Newcastle, and even though he's only played a few minutes, we're seeing him whenever he comes on, he plays pretty well. And he was one of their better players, but maybe you wouldn't say the best. I'd say if I was to narrow it down really to 2 for West Ham fans to be concerned about, Toko Ekambi, he's the top scorer in the Europa League with 6 goals, joint top. Having a good season, the 28-year-old off the left. And Lucas Paqueta, who people will remember. I've done a lot of research into him because I found him so fascinating, because I was one of those people who was on YouTube watching his highlights as he came to Milan thinking, oh my God, Kaka has returned. This is the next best thing. And didn't work out there. He was really played as like this, almost like a Ronaldinho, sort of out wide, but like asked to do everything attacking-wise. He got put to Lyon, and they basically made him play as sort of not a defensive midfielder, but like a ball winner. And it's just turned him into someone who's so well-rounded, so hungry, that he's the one to be most scared of from a West Ham perspective, because I think he's a bit like Kante, but if Kante had sort of attacking dynamism, who can play a final ball or finish on his own. So if I was boiling it down to 2, Toko Ekambi and Paqueta, really the ones I'd watch out for. But let's not forget Ndombele, Aouar as well in there, and Moussa Dembele, who's the top scorer of 12 goals in the league.
Moussa Dembele, someone who we have been linked with forever and will always be linked with probably until he gets so injured that he will actually join us. I'm just
like every striker in Europe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just Paqueta. Look, I'm not going to give too many of my opinions on here because Alex does know more than me, but Paqueta's so good. I love him so much. I think it was, who was it? Monaco, I want to say this season, where they won 2-0. And he played this. You mentioned Ronaldinho. It was a Ronaldinho-esque pass into the path of Emerson, who runs on and ends up playing it across to Denier. I think he was the one who ends up getting the goal. But like just this outside of the boot, no look pass. You're just it's just so good.
It's one of those things with Lyon. It's like with Paqueta as well, where like I'm a big advocate of just European football in general. I don't think there's such a thing as a Farmers League, but I do understand in France, like there will be players who look very good who aren't amazing, like Nicolas Pepe. There's going to be a drop off to come to Premier League. Yeah. Paqueta is one of those players where it's just raw talent. He's simply that good, and it's just like I believe you park him in the Premier League and he'll be just as good there. So and I think that's the same case for most of Lyon players.
One of the other players as well, specifically that we mentioned just before we went live, and also I wanted to ask about anyway, is Tete, who they actually went out and utilized the Ukrainian-Russia loan situation. They went and got Tete from Donetsk. And I just wanted to ask sort of how's he got on? I know he's only just sort of arrived, but is that something that maybe we need to look out for on Thursday?
Yes, for two reasons. One, because a loophole, I believe I was reading about from UEFA means he can play against you. On the predicted lineups, he's counted as out, but everything I've read so far says he can start. Okay. And he came as a sub at the weekend, and inside the first 3 minutes, look it up, Tete goal in Twitter search, he's bent a beauty into the far corner and left the goalkeeper rooted to the spot. 22-year-old Brazilian. He got 9 goals in the league last season in Ukraine and for Shakhtar. I've watched a bit of Shakhtar over the past year. He would have been under good coaching before the war with De Zerbi, who was in Italy. So if he does play against West Ham, I feel like he would come off the bench. But it's another sort of like another little threat to throw in there that the Irons defense have got to be a bit wary of.
And of course, the second player in recent years to play for Lyon called Tete. Just a fun fact.
Oh, yeah.
Not meaning of anything. Not just a fun little fact.
Just a little show off. I love it.
Just a little show off that I know things sometimes. You know, it's 2 letters. I can remember those. T-A-T-A-T-T. Let's go on to West Ham then. What do you think of their season so far? What do you think of how we've been doing?
Tell you what, for the people who know of me, they'll know I'm a neutral. I don't support any football team, but I do live in East London, and it's hard not to get sucked up into what's been a fun season. Really, like I watched the full game against the second leg against Sevilla, and like those post-match scenes was amazing. Absolutely loved it, and I think Moyes has done such an exceptional job that I mean, I don't want to give a prediction away too early, but I really think West Ham could do some big damage in the Europa League, especially since. Is it wrong to say? I feel like West Ham seem to be prioritising it. Like you're keeping afloat in the league, but it seems like you're looking at the Europa League and thinking, "Hang on, we could do something here."
A little bit. It does feel like early stages, obviously early doors in the group games. We were very much playing our second string squad. It was very much like the rotation was in full effect for those games. I remember the first game against Zagreb, and everyone sort of went, "Oh, that's not a good side." And then we ended up winning, and it sort of ended up kickstarting our season in that sense. But it was very much the second string. Whereas now we're putting the boys out. We're gunning for this one. We aren't, or at least from what we've seen recently, it seems like we're gunning for this one. And I suspect we play our strongest possible side again. But where do you think they would, if being a European football expert, where would you think they would rank? Like, where would you put? Do you think basically West Ham, this squad, this side is good enough to compete consistently in the Europa League, say, or do you think that our success this season feels like us playing above our station?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's what I do. Do you know what I mean? It's what I do. I've got the Tete facts. I got that. Listen, multifaceted.
I think it's the only thing that lets you down is depth, right? Like,
sure, yeah.
You take away, and I'm going to avoid Antonio because that's such an easy one, but even Declan Rice, who some West Ham fans, Charlie, may not know, have not forgotten yet that early doors in August, I'd said that I might have taken Zambo and Gisa of Fulham out Napoli, possibly over Rice, which I've very much backtracked. because Rice is clearly elite. I'm not gonna. I omit my flaws, people. I omit my flaws publicly there. Like, the point I'm going is, you take Rice out, like, all of a sudden this definite Europa League potential winning team, taking probably your best player means something. Take out Bowen as well. Like, have you got the players to support the attack left? I know Ben Rama started well, and it's dropped off a bit. So I think it depends on the investment in the summer. Okay. If you invest well, and even if you keep one of Bowen and Rice, I think there's still potential to be consistently up there. As for this season, I don't think you're punching above your weight, because like the squad, if this squad stays fit, there's no reason to say it can't. And like, if we're going to compare to Lyon, like, it's wrong to say the Premier League isn't the best league in the world. Like, I think it's going to be an all-English Champions League final. And even Lyon, with all of their talent, I think maybe would still be... I think this is quite a decent matchup. I think West Ham are better coached, and Lyon have probably the better talent. It's just like, the difference between West Ham's coaching is like David Moyes here, Tete Bosz is like, he's underground. He's in Australia. That's the levels between them. Harsh,
but listen, I'll take it. I'll take it all day. I'll take it all day, all night. Okay, then just very briefly, before we go on to sort of predictions and lineups and all that stuff, just very briefly, let's say West Ham do make it past Lyon. And I don't want to, this is maybe jinxing it, and I apologize if you think this is a jinx, block your ears for like 2 minutes or so. Barcelona. They're probably the biggest team left in the competition. We could potentially face that. Is West Ham winning the Europa League a legitimate possibility this season, do you think? Again, say we get past Lyon. Do you think, very briefly, because again, I know people are going to be people are going to be freaking out right now that I'm even daring to ask this question, because it's tempting fate. But
no, it's a fair question.
How do you feel? I mean, I think it is, but I understand. I understand the audience.
Yeah, I think people will. If people aren't from England, they'll sit here and think it's English bias. West Ham are the best in the world, but I think it's purely because how West Ham is set up. Right? Yeah, you've beaten United this season, I believe. You've beaten Liverpool. Am I right to say as well? You've beaten Chelsea as well. Yeah, you set up to beat big teams, and I think Xavi. Yeah, and I think Xavi under Barcelona, or Xavi rather, have been really good. They are undoubted favourites. Like, Barcelona are very clear at the moment. But an interesting thing, just to apply my own little bits of research into it, there is a huge difference. There's an argument to say La Liga's maybe bottom of the 5 leagues in Europe at the moment, because it's overtaken Serie A as the oldest league in Europe. It's got an average age, I think this season, maybe last season, about 28. And for context, Premier League's about average age of 26, which doesn't seem like much, but that's the difference between prime and slower players slowing down. Yeah. And in La Liga, there's a very common type of team where it's like old school Atletico Madrid, where it's sit at the back, sort of 4-4-2 are very common now, and quite slow attackers up front. And I think what you get is, you've seen it with Madrid, you can get caught off guard, I believe. And that's why maybe if West Ham went against Barcelona, I'd bet money on Barcelona still personally, but I wouldn't be writing off West Ham at all. I'd probably have it like 60-40, because I think West Ham provide something that La Liga teams aren't used to facing, beyond like the big three of Atletico, Real Madrid and Barcelona, just purely in terms of style, not in terms of talent. I'm arguing that.
Fair. Then let's talk about the game specifically. You can take your ears, you can take things out of you. How do you see the game going, and to the best of your knowledge, what kind of 11 do you reckon Lyon will be playing?
Well, as the predicted lineups at the moment, they're a little off, because they do say that Tete is like out. But from everything we're reading, I mean, don't quote me on it 100%, but it looks like he will start. The interesting thing from the Lyon perspective is that they have a Kakare out, their midfielder, who's quite highly rated. So they're going to be forced into probably playing one of Dembele and Aouar next to, if they're going to play a sort of defensive player, it would be Thiago Mendes. But again, that would mean, point I'm getting to is, they'd have a very attacking midfield. Like, if we're going to confirm that issue about Lyon push too high, they don't have enough protection, then they're not going to have enough protection playing Ndombele and Aouar who just want to get forward. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, even though Lyon would be stronger in Europe, I do think West Ham at home could get 1 or 2 goals at least. In fact, I've gone on the record to say I would bet my house on West Ham scoring across these 2 legs, which could backfire, but it'll be fine.
What's your property situation looking like?
Well, let's hold up for it. It's fine because West Ham will score across these 2 legs. As I said.
Okay. Good.
Lyon are so weak at the back, and that's what I think. I think Lyon will still push high, maybe not as high as usual, and West Ham will be able to find those gaps. And it depends who starts in goal. I'm a big fan of Areola. I think he's better than Fabianski. Maybe he could be a difference there to stopping the goals come in. I guess the one person we should touch on as well is Moussa Dembele. He'll be quite an interesting matchup because he's a little like Ivan Toney in how he likes to throw his body about, but he's also quite skillful. So I'll be interested to see how like Zuma and Dawson, I believe, would start, right? How they handle him.
Yeah, it's the one Gonzo's most looking forward to. He loves the Dembele, but it's the one I think most West Ham fans would be most interested in, given the fact that we've been so heavily linked with him. We came up against En-Nesyri in the last round against Sevilla, and similarly here, this is another one of the 18 million strikers we keep getting linked with, who I think most West Ham fans will be looking at and forgetting about Paqueta. So then let's finally get to what are your final thoughts, and give me say your score prediction for the first leg, and then who do you think will go through after both legs? I won't ask you for score predictions for both. I'm not too mean, but for score prediction for the first leg, and then who do you think will go through out the 2 sides?
Before I give it, I must say everything I've said, it could be blown away because Jean-Michel Aulas, the Lyon president, he was reported today in L'Équipe, came out and said he had a premonition about Lyon winning the Europa League final. And he said the last time he said this was when he arrived at the club in 2001. And that's when Lyon won on their 7 championship winning streak. So maybe he's seen the lights. But personally, I think it will be a West Ham 2-0 win at the London Stadium. Quite bold. I usually try and go 1-0 because I'm really boring and I want to try and get predictions right. But I just think this Lyon defense is horrible, even if they're going to try and tighten it up. I think West Ham are in a much better shape. And then maybe when it goes to the second leg, squeaky bum time, could see Lyon score a goal or 2. But really, if you're a West Ham fan from this game, I think hopefully, very quickly, you'll get quite comfortable. And after that point, I would say just try and enjoy the talent Lyon have and just maybe have a little bit of fun scouting for the team and thinking, oh, I love that Paqueta bloke. He's great. I love that Roman Favre bloke. A right wing. He's fit in. Good Bowen replacement. That's the approach I take.
Okay. I trust me. If anyone watches the watch along tomorrow, they're going to be seeing me talking a lot about Paqueta. I'll tell you that much for free. I'm going to be banging on about him. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. I genuinely do appreciate it. Let the people know where they can find all of your stuff.
Oh, thank you very much. You can find me at EuroExpert on Twitter and TikTok. I try and upload these animated match previews, and you might have seen some of my videos before of player profiles where I try and break down everything you need to know about a potential signing in about 50 seconds. You can believe me, I have done a lot on potential West Ham signings that never came to fruition. But hopefully a lot more of them will become real this summer, and you'll be able to find everything you need to know about signings from Europe, which I imagine West Ham, with your Eastern European links, Alex Krau and Soufal, you will make, and I'll be there to give the insight.
Listen, trust me, if I can promise one thing, we will be linked with a lot of players. I can tell you that much for a fact. Listen, whether or not it comes up doesn't matter. You can make a video on the links. That's what we do here on Hammers Chat. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification if you haven't already, because tomorrow, of course, is match day. That means we'll be live throughout the entire thing. An hour and 5 minutes before kickoff, we have the build-up show. Half an hour, we have the watch along, all the way through until full time when the review happens. So make sure to come back for that. Like the video, if you haven't already, hit up Alex, because trust me, he knows this stuff. I've seen his TikToks, he knows this stuff. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.